Hello everybody, welcome back. Hope y'all had a nice Christmas. I had a great one, just got back from the farm today. It's good to be back at the bench. Now I don't tie a lot of Catskill dry flies, and for a couple of reasons. Really, they're pretty challenging flies. And the other reason is that if you're trying to emulate one of the masters like Mike Valla from this book right here, well, there's a good chance you're going to come up a little bit short. But that's not to say that we shouldn't try. I love tying them and I certainly love fishing them. So today's pattern is the Red Fox, created by a guy named Ray Smith. Now Mike Valla has a great chapter about Ray Smith in his Tying Catskill Dry Flies. Now we don't know when he created this pattern, but we know he was an active tyer between the 1920s and 1960s. Smith passed away in 1975, but he had several flies that he's credited with. I'd say the one he's most famous for is probably this one, the Red Fox. Now one thing I do want to mention on this one, the Red Fox dubbing that you use, a lot of you might not have that. I've got this patch right here from a Red Fox. This is actually a roadkill from here in Maryland, and I make a lot of dubbing with this. But notice the underfur, it's a really dark gray right there. So what I'll do in this case, I would just pull it up. Instead of snipping it off real close to the hide there, I'll snip it off just above the gray underfur. That will leave you with the reddish brown underfur. Then I'll pull the guard hairs out and then mix that up, and there you go. That's your reddish brown dubbing. So if you don't have any fox or a pelt like this to work with, just use anything, any kind of dry fly dubbing that's a red or a light brown. I think that's going to work for you. So the Red Fox, again, there's no real advanced techniques. Just pay attention to your proportions. With the Catskill dry flies, maybe a long tail with a stiff hackle, tied 1.5 to 2 times the hook gap, and fairly sparse. And usually the Catskill style dry flies, the head is not right up to the eye, it's back set just a little bit. So there you go, pretty fun pattern. I think y'all are gonna like it. Let's give it a shot. So there it is in the vise, Ray Smith's Red Fox. As with lots of Catskill flies, you see that's a pretty long tail and a fair size hackle. And I would say common sizes for this are 12, 14s, and 16s. I'm gonna go with a 12. That's a 1X long dry fly hook. And I'm sure you could go down to an 18 if you're trying to match some pretty small mayflies. And I'm gonna start with black thread and just put a small base down, the first third of it or so. Now with my thread about a third of the way back, I'm going to take mallard flank feather right here, and I'm just going to take the whole feather. See that? It's still got the stem in the middle of it. Maybe lick your fingers, pull it together, and you could take 2. If you want a big bushy wing, go ahead and grab 2 of them, but I think 1 is going to be fine. We'll split it here in just a minute, but it's a pretty long wing. Envision the hackle going to be about 1.5 to 2 times that hook gap. The wing is even higher than that. So we're gonna go about right there. Let's catch this in. We'll flip it up and see what that does for us. Okay, we got 2 wraps. That right there is a little bit long, so we can shorten it by taking a couple wraps up. But remember, Catskill flies, they leave a little bit of a bare hook up at the front. So I think we're gonna be fine right there. Let's go ahead and catch this in. And that's about 4 wraps, so I think we're in there pretty good. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to just pull the back end of this feather up at about a 30 or 45 degree angle with my scissors parallel to the hook. Just go ahead and snip that off, and then when we bind that, we might get a little bit of a taper. But before we do that, let's go ahead and split and post this wing. So what we're going to do here, I'm just going to try my best to split them about half and half, and then I'll do an X-wrap in between them, and we're going to have to post them up because this is going to lay them a little bit flat. So that's a full X-wrap right there, and you can see they're splayed out like I want, but I still want them up and a little bit closer together. So what we can do here, we can take a wrap just around the wing, almost like we're doing 2 individual parachute posts. So that's 1 wrap around that one. Take it back over here, and I'm going to do the same thing on this near side right here. So just 1 wrap around this one. You can't pull too tight, but we didn't. So now what we have right here is, kind of looks like a spinner, but it's not. So let's go ahead and just lift them all up, get my thread right behind it, and I'm going to lift it all up and then put a wrap around just around both posts, both wings. And that stood them up a little bit, but not enough. So I'm going to go and spin a few wraps just right up under it to try to prop them up at about a 90-degree angle. Okay, let's see what we have here. They're getting a little close together, but I think we're going to be fine right there. We can, you know, kind of use the hackle we're going to wrap in a minute to help position them. But let's go onto the back. Loose wraps right here, just binding these fibers in. And we got a little bit of a taper right there, that's fine. Now take your thread to the back, we're going to catch in the tail. And for this one, I'm going to use one of these same feathers, but I'm not going to just catch the whole thing in. What I'll do here is just pull it out and maybe grab about 10 or so of them. Okay, so here's 10 fibers right here, and I'm going to catch it in long, probably a length of the body, about right there. Let's see what that does for us. Little pinch wrap on the top. Okay, I think that's fine. I don't necessarily want them pointing down. If they are too much, you can throw a wrap of thread right under them, but I think we're going to be fine right there. So I'm going to skip that. A couple more wraps to catch this in. Now let's snip off this excess. Couple wraps for good measure. Now let's get some wax on our thread and get ready for this dubbing. So here's that red fox kind of underfur dubbing I'm talking about, with the guard hairs mostly removed. I might have left a few, but I think we'll be fine here. And then not using the gray underfur. So let's just put a noodle on here. We're going to take it up just a little bit behind that wing. So I think maybe 2.5 inches. We'll see. Maybe 3 inches. I'm going to put it on fairly tight right here. I don't want a real big buggy body. Most Catskill flies have a fairly thin body. Now that one, is that making a little bit of a mess on me? Yeah, it is, but we're going to be fine. Whoops, got a little bit of bare thread right there. Let's fix that. Now just take it on up right behind the wing, or just a bit shy of those wings. Now the next thing we're going to catch in is some ginger hackle. And remember, Catskill flies, big hackle, at least 1.5, maybe 2 times that hook gap right there. I think that is going to work. So let's create a little catch-in point right there. And I'm going to catch this in right behind these wings. Couple wraps. See, I've got a little bit of bare stem showing. That's going to help me get that first wrap down without any of these fibers splaying back. Let's go ahead and get our thread up front. I'm going to have a little bit of nub right here to snip off. Okay, now let's just wrap this. And I'm going to go, I think the one I had in the vise at the beginning of this video was a little bit over hackled. So I think I'm going to just go with maybe 3 behind it and then 2 in front of it. We'll see what that does for us. Okay, let's go 1 more in front. I don't think 2 up front was quite enough, and I think we can get away with 1 more. So let's go ahead and catch this off with 2 wraps. Now let's snip off this and see if we have any wayward fibers going forward. Not many. I think we're going to be fine right here. I'm just going to grab everything, pull it back a little bit so I can get a couple of wraps right here and then get my whip finish in. So just making some room for a whip finish right here. I'm not trying to sweep these hackle fibers back really at all, and I'm not going to let my head get too big on me. So I think we're fine right there. Let's go ahead and put a whip finish and see if we got any cleanup. Well, I wouldn't have had much cleanup except I trapped that fiber right there with my whip finish, but we can take care of that. You could either pluck it, sometimes that works, if not, just sniff it. Did I say sniff it? I meant snip it. Don't need to be sniffing these feathers. Okay, so that's it. I think we're fine with cleanup right there. Just a little bit of head cement and this guy's ready to go. So there you go. Pretty simple pattern, red fox. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Take care and we'll see you next time.